I did have a lot of female tendencies and female feelings when I was 5 years old. Like the things I preferred female. While boys used to play with cars, I used to want to play with Barbie dolls. When boys were wearing pants, I wanted to wear skirt. And this was at 5 years old. Like back then when I knew nothing about transgender women, I knew nothing about transitioning. It's just how I felt inside. And yeah, I just loved watching girl cartoons. Everything about me was very girlish. And my family noticed it and they thought it was just a passing phase. But as time grew, I suppressed it because due to society and due to family pressure, they kept, drilling in me that it was wrong to behave that way. From there, I just suppressed it and just didn't let it out.
Hanging out with straight people, especially when you don't wish them to know, you have to pretending to be someone else. You are always worried that they might find out what you are and will they still be able to accept you and still hang out with you like before. And sometimes it gets awkward when people who don't know that you are trans and they sort of ask very normal questions is like, so when are you going to get married? When are you going to have kids? So these are some of the awkward moments that you just don't know how to react, which are just too sudden.
Well, so yes, it was about 16. At that time, like we didn't have Google. We were still using just Yahoo, and there were really not much about transnet. And even if there were, it was a lot more on trans women. And that's when the realization strikes that if one can transition from being a male to a female, then there must be a way that I could be the opposite. So that's when I started reading up a lot more and realizing that I could actually be a man.
Born a transgender, I become aware that I'm a transgender when I'm in Sec 2. You must know that was like 20 years ago. That time still don't have any LGBT organization. One schoolboy came up to me and scold me bapok. That is the time when I realized that who I am. When I realized that I am these labels, it helped me become aware of who I am. And the rest is history.
So when we transition, the transition comparing with trans women is less fast. So, during the stages when we were transitioning, people might not realize that we are actually trans men. We will be easily seen as just a butch who happens to be more masculine than the other butches. It's in a way, I won't deny that it's easier for trans men to blend well because we do tend to have better access to education and job opportunities. I'm not talking about the ratio of getting jobs, but it appears that trans men do have better access to education and employment because of the integration, which is a smoother process for trans men comparing with trans women.
I transitioned very young. I underwent an SIS very young. When we transition early, for the early transitioner, we are most likely cannot conform to the school system, so we leave school early. We are most likely being evicted out by our families because our family don't understand us, and we are most likely have to fend for ourselves with no financial support from our families, and with no necessary certs or diploma.
So without a proper qualification, it's difficult to find a job. And plus the fact that we are for what we are, the bosses, the companies, when they see you, they don't really want to employ you because some of them will care about their image. They don't want to employ such people like us and invite gossips or any troubles in the company. So most of us will have difficulty finding jobs.
So we can only be employed in low-end jobs, security guard or receptionist. But as I said, we most likely as an early transition, most likely homeless. So not only do we have to pay for the rent of a room, if we are lucky we can find one room, so we have to fight for survival every day. A lot of my peers will enter the sex industry to supplement their income, not because they want to, not because the sex industry affirm their sexuality, but it's because it's the only industry that doesn't ask any questions about their gender identity, and it's the only industry that welcomes them because they need to, not because they want to.
Even though I was born in the wrong body, I didn't quite understand fully what the term transgender actually was until later in life, maybe about when I was 19, 20. Then I fully understood that what I am was anti-transgender and those such people actually exist and such a condition actually existed, and it's not something which is out of the ordinary. I always felt like I was a girl born into a boy's body, just that I never felt that there was actually a condition to actually diagnose it, which is why I focus more on my education. I focus on other things in life for that moment of time before actually finishing all of it and realizing that I needed to focus on myself.
Transgender person or transgenderism exists over so many years already. So I don't see myself out of the box. I always tell people the problem doesn't lie with me because I accept myself fully. The problem lies with the society, it lies with you all. You all must educate yourself to accept me, not I educate you all because I feel fine. So I'm not out of the box. It's the society that is must think out of the box. I'm always in the box.
If you are a cisgender person and somebody misgender you with the wrong pronouns, you wouldn't feel much because you know that you are a man and you don't deal with the uncertainty of your body. And I just found it really hard to go to work on a very positive note when you go to work and you have to deal with people who just refuse to accept and understand. I can't change the way I think about how they misgender me, so I thought about what's best for me, which would be to go ahead with my transitioning.
I am the person, the transgender that sits beside you in the MRT station. I am your transgender neighbor. I am your classmate. I am your co-workers. The Singapore government allows us to change our gender marker when we SIS, sex reassignment surgery. We are allowed to legally change our gender. Once we legally change our gender, we are protected under the Women's Charter Act. We are allowed to marry legally. We are allowed to adopt children legally. Singapore society is very, very inclusive in terms of legal documentations, policies, but perhaps another step forward is the society as a whole. Respect must be earned, I know, but perhaps I'll ask for a little more common courtesy towards us, a little more kindness towards us, and to see me as a person first, not to see my gender. My gender identity doesn't define me. I'm a person, I have my own personality. Perhaps to see my gender identity as a strength and not as a hindrance or not as a mistake. It's actually a strength.
I always want to have a sister. I always wanted to have a sister. Sometimes it dance around in the room. We sing sometimes. Yeah. When I tell my friend that my sister is a model, after what my friend said, my sister is so pretty. I like my sister.
Yeah, you never told me that before.
Yes.
Okay, now I know.
Yeah.
I don't hold back when it comes to my baby brother.
As I begin to realize that there is zero social support for my transgender community. A lot of LGBT organizations, they do awareness and discrimination workshop. They didn't really realize, they didn't really understand what are the real needs and wants of the transgender community, which is about the early transitional transgender, who because they want to be who they are and they're chased out by their family and become homeless and they enter the sex industry. Let me give you an example. I always talk about the vicious cycle. Become a transgender early, leave school, chased out by family, cannot find a job because no qualification, enter the sex trade. Enter the sex trade, okay, very fine, fighting for survival, renting a room in Geylang. So one day they were caught by the police. So they were convicted of soliciting and they will go to jail for 1 year. After 1 year they come out, what's the first thing they do? They re-enter the sex trade on the very first night. Because when they were in jail for that 1 year, their belongings, their room is gone. So the first night that they came out from the jail is the first night they enter the sex industry. Just to earn enough money to rent a room or earn enough money for food. And that's the first night they also will do bareback because for the extra $20 or $30. So the vicious cycle will go on and on again if there's no social support for them. My intention when I started up this transgender shelter is for people like them when they're out of jail or when they meet certain challenges in life, become homeless, they can at least come to my shelter and stay without worrying about rent or food. At least there's a safe space for them and they can use that time in my shelter to think what they're going to do next. To support or help them in whatever way I can to make them stand on their own 2 feet again.